All right. So language arts today, we are covering joining sentences. So what we've been working on in sort of our grammar and language mechanics side is, thinking about what makes a complete sentence. We start talking about subjects, we start talking about verbs, how they work together to make a sentence. Then on Monday, we talked about, identifying fragments and run-ons. So it's leading up to this where we're going to actually join sentences. So particularly, on the side of seeing fragments, but also, making sure our sentences are joined correctly. So the run-on, the fundamentals of understanding when you see a run-on sentence applies to this as well. So, a good writer, and I'm not talking about just like best-selling authors, but of course they do this as well. But a good writer, somebody who's good at communicating, with the written word, will mix their sentences. You'll have some long sentences, you'll have some short sentences. That creates a better flow. If you have too many short sentences, your writing sounds choppy. That's all grammatically correct, right? If you're careful, but adding those longer sentences, which tend to be, give you more description of, whatever you're writing about, the subject. Where short sentences, you could reserve those a lot of times to emphasize a point. Particularly if it's an imperative statement, right? If you're making a command or you just want to drive something home, so you add, that short sentence to the end. So joining sentences here, right? So like the skill set says, it's producing simple, compound, and complex sentences. So expand, combine, and reduce sentences. So basically, when you have two sentences, would it work better together? Do you have a better idea if you join them? And how do you join them, right? We also want to make sure that we don't wind up making a grammatical error in doing so. So let's take a look at our lesson. We'll find out how that all works. All right.
Hello, this is the lesson Joining Sentences. When you're writing, sometimes simple sentences are best, but simple sentences can sound repetitive. This lesson will help you combine simple sentences.
Yeah, so it sounds repetitive, it sounds choppy. If you're to write a cover letter, like you're applying for a job, and saying like, I teach social studies and language arts classes. I have a master's degree from Ohio University. I have experience in education and higher education. I am a good candidate for your job, right? That's it's all grammatically correct, but it's just doesn't flow well. It can sound repetitive, particularly. That's something we're going to deal with as well. We haven't talked a lot about pronouns, but making sure that you sort of mix up. You don't use the same repetitive phrases, use the same words, and to some degree, combining sentences will help you eliminate that.
When I was first learning to write in English, it helped me to write in short, simple sentences. Sentences that I could wrap my head around. It wasn't a problem at first, but then I helped a friend out by writing a letter to her daughter's teacher. My English was a lot better than my friend's, but I guess not better enough. I was so embarrassed. The teacher thought that my friend's little daughter had written it. Well, once it got sorted out, the teacher was embarrassed too. When I asked for help from my teacher, she told me that children often write in short, simple sentences for a lot of the same reasons. Short sentences are easy to understand, but they get repetitive. They don't sound smooth, and they don't make good connections between thoughts. That's when I started learning about joining sentences. Whenever I'm writing, if I have too many short sentences, I'll try to combine some of them. It makes my writing so much better, and it's not that difficult. I'll show you how.
And of course, the thing to remember with longer sentences is that it's not too long, right? You don't want to get into a situation where you're making a run-on sentence. So you have to remember your rules there, right? You don't want more than 2 independent clauses in a sentence, and you have to make sure that you're using the correct punctuation or joining words.
Let's talk about the simplest way to combine 2 sentences, joining independent clauses. It's the simplest way because you don't really need to make any changes in the sentences. Take a look at these 2 sentences. My first art show is tomorrow. I will display 8 paintings. One easy way to connect these sentences is with a semicolon. The semicolon can connect any 2 independent clauses that have a close connection. You just use a semicolon instead of a period.
So yes, that is one way to do it. Here's the problem though. Does it sound any different than the 2 short sentences, right? The first example there is my first art show is tomorrow. I will display 8 paintings. The second example there, my first art show is tomorrow. I will display 8 paintings. It's a good way to mix it up, but particularly in more formal writing, you probably won't see or use a lot of semicolons in this for this reason, right? So yeah, you can use them use them sparingly though, because in honesty, as somebody's reading it, you still don't really have, that sort of flow. It's still a little bit choppy.
First art show is tomorrow. I will display 8 paintings. A semicolon is a good way to connect sentences when the second sentence starts with an adverb like however or therefore that shows a relationship with the sentence before it, like this. The deadline has passed. However, we can make an exception. Notice that there's a semicolon before the adverb and a comma after it. The adverb is part of the second independent clause, but it shows a connection between the 2 sentences. The word, however, shows contrast.
Yeah, that's a much better use of the semicolon. And remember, anytime you're using a semicolon, you should have an independent clause on either side. So there you're splitting up your independent clauses with however, right? Semicolon, however, comma. And then of course you have those words, those types of adverbs that you have to, that you're going to use in those situations. Furthermore, nevertheless, moreover.
The most common way to connect 2 independent clauses is with one of the fanboys words, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. These words are called coordinating conjunctions, but it's more important to recognize the words than to know what they're called. These words also show relationships between 2 independent clauses. But and yet show contrast. And just shows that both things are true. For and so show cause and effect, or gives a choice. And nor shows that neither thing is true.
Yeah, let's just pause on that for a second, right? So fanboys, for and nor, but, or, yet, so. I guess it's an okay way to remember them. And so this is the one tricky thing. This is the one thing. It basically comes down to memory. I think in our resources here we have that subordinating conjunctions again. So things that you would use, that you would need additional punctuation for that don't stand alone with just a comma. But here, right, these words, if you're separating 2 independent clauses, you can use with the comma, right, in these cases. So for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. You could all, one of the, easy way to remember them is they're all no more than 3 letters, right? They're always short words. If you're going to use however, if you're going to use nevertheless, furthermore, something like that, you know that you're going to need a semicolon in front of it and a comma after. But for those shorter conjunctions, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, fanboys, I guess it's the easiest way to remember them. It's that those are conjunctions, you can use them.
So to choose the best connecting word, you need to understand the relationship between the 2 sentences. Look at these sentences. We could go sailing tomorrow. We could go skydiving. What's the relationship between these 2 sentences? Unless it's going to be a very busy day, they're probably giving a choice. Sailing plus skydiving is a little much for one day, so the word or is a good choice to join the sentences. We could go sailing tomorrow, or we could go skydiving. Remember to always add a comma before the fanboys word when you're joining two independent clauses. That's what shows the reader that what comes next is a new independent clause. So, do you have a good grasp of joining two independent clauses now?
I guess you could skydive onto a sailboat, right? I mean, that would take care of it. So yeah, here's a great example, right? Test taking, quiz taking tip here, right? Understanding the context, like she was talking about. This is probably an either or situation. We could go sailing tomorrow. We could go skydiving, right? If it was, we will go sailing tomorrow, we will go skydiving tomorrow, something like that, then you know both of those actions are going to take place. So you would combine it with and, right? Or something like that. So context in these sorts of situations when you're taking your test will matter. We will go sailing tomorrow, comma, conjunction, or we could go skydiving. Two independent clauses put together.
Which sentence has two independent clauses joined correctly?
Now here is a little bit of a tricky one, right? In October, it starts to get cold. So what do? Right? Here's, I'm going to give you some, some test taking types of tips, things to look for if you're posed with combining sentences, sentence fragments, run-on sentences, and things like that, right? Let's look at our second option here. In October, it starts to get cold and the leaves start to change colors. I've mentioned several times, right, that a semicolon, by and large, replaces the word and, right? If you see a semicolon and you see the word and next to it, automatic no-no, right? That's like saying it starts to get cold and the leaves start to change colors, right? Too much punctuation there. So, that's my always rule of thumb. Can the semicolon replace the word and, right? So in this case, you're not going to have those two together. In October, it starts to get cold, but the leaves start to change colors. Grammatically correct. This is a context thing here, right? In October, it starts to get cold. That's contrast though, right? It's like saying, however. Well, we kind of know it gets cold in October and we know that the leaves change. So this makes it sound like that's an exception, like that is something exceptional that is happening in that case, right? No, that's commonplace for the leaves to start to change color in October. In October, it starts to get cold, the leaves start to change colors. No, right? We have an intervening phrase, right? But we don't have a independent clause. So in October, the leaves start to change colors. Okay, but this phrase does not fit there. So in October, it starts to get cold, comma. So the leaves start to change colors, right? There is our conjunction. So this in October, right, is our lead in. That's basically an introductory phrase to tell us when it's happening. In October, it starts to get cold, so the leaves start to change. Here's where we're joining that, right? The so and the conjunction.
Great job. The word so shows the relationship between the two independent clauses. Because the weather is cold, the leaves begin to change color. The choice is also punctuated correctly. It joins two independent clauses with a comma and the fanboy's word so.
Okay. And let's keep going here.
Another way that you can join two sentences is by creating a subordinate clause. That means you need to identify the relationship between the two sentences and choose a subordinating conjunction. That's a word like because, after, or while that starts a subordinate clause and shows the relationship between the two clauses. Let's say I want to join these two sentences. The flight is delayed. There's a storm in Dallas. What's the relationship between the two sentences? What would a delayed flight have to do with a storm? It's cause and effect, right? If there's a storm, it might make planes late. So the word because is a good choice to join these two ideas. You can put the subordinate clause at the end of the independent clause, like this. The flight is delayed because there's a storm in Dallas. Notice that you don't need to add a comma or any punctuation. You can also put the subordinate clause at the beginning with a comma after it. Because there's a storm in Dallas, the flight is delayed. You'll find a list of subordinating conjunctions in the resources that you can use in your writing. They're useful because they show the relationships between ideas.
Yeah, so subordinate conjunctions, right, which we saw this list before. So you have a set that deal with time or when something happens, contrast, right? So like although this happened, this other thing happened. How or the way something happened, the amount something happened, or the reason, which is what they did there. Or conditionally, right? If then kind of idea there. If this happens, then that happened. And you notice none of these are those fanboy conjunctions. Some of them are short. That's where you have to be careful. But typically, right, they show some type of relationship where, who, and yeah, also your punctuation comes into play depending on where they're located. So like it's said, like she said here, and you have to understand the relationship between the two, right? So the flight is delayed. There's a storm in Dallas, right? So that relationship is telling me that, that cause and effect, because there's a storm in Dallas, the flight is delayed. So we could say the flight is delayed because there's a storm in Dallas, or because there's a storm in Dallas, comma, the flight is delayed.
Which choice best combines these sentences?
Okay, so here, right, the conference room is empty. We can meet in there. So this is all about choosing the right conjunction, right? Or right subordinating conjunction. Although the conference room is empty, we can meet in there. So we got contrast. That doesn't really make sense. That's grammatically correct, but it doesn't make sense in this context, right? It doesn't represent the relationship between the two sentences that well. The conference room is empty if we can meet in there. Also, that does not make sense. And that just, if we can meet in there, the conference room is empty. No, that doesn't work well. The conference room is empty because we can meet in there. No, that's not a cause and effect relationship. It's not empty because we can meet in there. It's just empty. So that third idea there, now that the conference room is empty, we can meet in there. So there you get that subordinating conjunction, right? Now. Yeah, so it's C. And just like we had in our, shouldn't close that to start with, right? Showing time. Time when? Now that. So just like they use here, now that dinner is cooked, we can eat. So there we go. Now that the conference room is empty.
Great job. This sentence describes a reasonable relationship between the conference room being empty and being able to meet there. The phrase, now that, makes this sentence mean that the conference room is now empty, and so it's possible to meet there.
All right.
Let's talk about one more way to combine two sentences. Sometimes two sentences have something in common, like a subject or a verb. When that happens, you can often combine two sentences into one independent clause. Let me show you an example. Paulo went to lunch early. He will be back soon. Because the word he is talking about Paulo, these sentences really have the same subject. Paulo is the subject of both of them. So you can combine these sentences into one sentence with two verbs. Paulo went to lunch early and will be back soon.
All right,
Here
and
is an
we're
example.
out here, right?
So you can combine.
We're combining it with two verbs. So we're not creating a list and we're not creating a independent clause. So it's different use of and, right? It's still a conjunction, but we're not combining two independent clauses, so we don't need the comma
Combine
there.
these sentences into sentences with similar verbs.
Here we go.
Georgina will be at the conference. Antonio will be there too. The predicate is stated in a slightly different way, but both sentences mean that the person will be at the conference. You can combine these sentences into one sentence with two subjects. Both Georgina and Antonio will be at the conference. You can also combine two sentences into one independent clause if one sentence describes something in the other sentence. Sentences often have descriptive words and phrases to explain more about the subject, verb, or object. Sometimes a whole sentence can be shortened into a descriptive phrase. Look at these sentences. Jamie has been working hard. She wants to get a promotion. What's the relationship between these two sentences? The phrase, to get a promotion, describes why Jamie has been working hard. You could make one of these sentences into a subordinate clause, but she wants isn't really an important part of the meaning. You can make a shorter sentence by using to get a promotion as a descriptive phrase. Jamie has been working hard to get a promotion. Here's another example. Philosophy is a subject I enjoy. It is the study of knowledge, wisdom, and reason. The second sentence describes philosophy. You can make it into a descriptive phrase in the first sentence. Philosophy, the study of knowledge, wisdom, and reason, is a subject I enjoy. When you combine two sentences, look for what you can leave out without changing the meaning.
Right, and that's basically making an intervening phrase there. So philosophy is a subject I enjoy, right? That was the first simple sentence. It is the study of knowledge, wisdom, and reason. So basically, that second sentence describes what philosophy is. A lot of times descriptive wording is what you'll see in introductory phrase, or not intervening phrases. Philosophy, comma, the study of knowledge, wisdom, and reason, comma, is a subject I enjoy, right? So you have your commas separating the intervening phrase there from philosophy as a subject I enjoy. Also, you have a list in there too. They made it a little complicated because they also say knowledge, wisdom, and reason, which they've separated with commas. But for the phrase itself, you need that comma at the beginning. Philosophy, comma, the study of knowledge, wisdom, and reason, comma, is a subject I enjoy.
Which choice best combines these sentences?
Right. So, perfect example of two simple sentences that could be choppy together, particularly if you're in a longer passage. I got a new dog. Her name is Giggles. And a great exercise here. So I got a new dog. Her name is Giggles. That's grammatically incorrect, right? Because we're just separating two independent clauses with a comma. You could say, I got a new dog and her name is Giggles. That's how you would use that in the first example there. I got a new dog named Giggles. I kind of like that one. Let's look at the other options here, see what we got. I got a new dog, it's Giggles. I don't know, that sounds almost like Russian Russian people. They don't use a lot of articles in their language and stuff. If you ever heard them talk, they eliminate certain phrases. So I got a new dog, it's Giggles. Like pronouns, they don't use pronouns in articles sometimes. That's incorrect, right? We've shortened it too much. There's not enough there. I got a new dog, still an independent clause. It's Giggles, not a independent clause, and not even enough of a subordinate clause. So yeah, that's definitely out. Now that I got a new dog, her name is Giggles. Um, Not correct, right? Because it sounds like because I got a new dog, her name is Giggles. Or, that doesn't explain, that's changing the idea in those first two sentences. So I got a new dog named Giggles, right? It's going to be the right answer, right? We would need a conjunction here. I got a new dog, comma, and her name is Giggles, or we would need to turn that comma into a semicolon to make this one correct, A. So what we have here, right? I got a new dog named Giggles. Gives you all the information you need to know. We have a subject, we have a verb. We've turned two independent clauses into one independent clause, right?
Great job. Her name is Giggles can be shortened to the descriptive phrase named Giggles.
Okay, so looks like we are ready for the
Very good work on those
practice
exercises.
questions.
Now it's time to do some practice.
We're moving right
You
along.
can show what you've learned and maybe learn even more.
Okay.
Use the review button to improve your learning.
So considering this is basically sentence correction, let's start with about 10 minutes to work on those independently. And then we'll come back and do a little review, look at the answers there. But go ahead and work on your own there for about 10 minutes through those sentences. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, where's my stuff? Something must be going on. Sorry if you heard all the sirens and everything. There's like, keep hearing fire trucks, emergency vehicles in front of our place. And I don't know exactly where they're headed, but then my wife sends me something from work that there must be a fire they're responding to nearby. It's not super close because they kept going, so I think we want to be safe. That's all I need. Fire on like one of the hottest days of the year so far. Anyway, yeah, so let's take a look here. So our first sentence we need to change here, that we need to combine, right? This whole lesson is about combining sentences. Which choice best combines the sentence? I just baked this pie. It is still too hot to eat, right? Again, thinking about the context of the two sentences together, thinking about the relationship between the two. I just baked this pie, but it is still too hot to eat. I just baked this pie, for it is still too hot to eat. I just baked this pie, so it is still too hot to eat. I just baked this pie, and it is still too hot to eat. You know, right away, that last one, we know we can eliminate it. Semicolon and. That's not going to fly in our modern American grammar. I've seen that in creative writing sometimes. J.R.R. Tolkien, through the Lord of the Rings books, uses that construction, and it drives me crazy. But you know, in modern language, 2022, you're not going to use a semicolon and together. So it comes down to which of these best conjunctions best explains that relationship, but is pretty close. I mean, you know, I just baked this pie, but it is still too hot to eat. I could see you using that, but that is contrast. And we're basically looking more at a, you know, sort of if then type of relationship. So in this circumstance is the correct way to go. I just baked this pie, so it is still too hot to eat. I just got this pie out of the oven, so it is still too hot. Very tricky, these two. Okay. Right. Jason is tired. He didn't sleep last night. Right. So we know the relationship here. He's tired because he didn't sleep. Okay. While Jason didn't sleep last night, he is tired. That doesn't make sense, right? While doesn't work in that situation. Jason is tired because he didn't sleep last night. Kind of like in that one. Even if Jason didn't sleep last night, he is tired. That doesn't make sense, right? Even if Jason didn't sleep last night, he is tired. Well, maybe so, or because Jason slept or didn't sleep last night, right? But even, right? Well, no, you should be tired if you didn't sleep. After Jason is tired, he didn't sleep last night. No, right? Because we're talking about the here and now, not something that happened afterward. Jason is tired because he didn't sleep last night. Everything we need to know there, right? Jason is tired, didn't sleep last night. You put two together, right? Because he didn't sleep last night, Jason's tired. So here we combine those. We don't need any punctuation. If we put because he didn't sleep last night, we would want the comma and then Jason is tired. But here we do not need any punctuation. There's another siren going down the road. Something's happening. All right. Now I'm getting a little nervous because they seem to be. Okay, no, he's keeping going. Okay. Enrique saved his money for months. He plans to buy a new smartphone, right? So Enrique's been saving money for months. What's he going to do with it? He plans to buy a new smartphone. So here we're going to make that one independent clause. Just man. So we want Enrique saved his money for months and plans to buy a new smartphone, making that one independent clause. We no longer have two independent clauses that we're combining because we're separating those verbs with and, right? Saved and plans. So Enrique saved his money for months and plans to buy a new smartphone.
Excellent. You got the
Oh,
first
no, I didn't
three.
want to submit. Let's keep going. Okay, here we go. Sounds like something's going on somewhere else too. Which sentence correctly joins two independent clauses, right? Continue with that idea. So what do we have in common in these sentences? That's something else to look for. Read through your answer choices. Commonality here is the word however, right? Every one of these sentences has the word however. They're actually the same sentence. No differences here. So we are definitely looking at a punctuation situation. And what do we talk about? However, it's one of those adverbs. Doesn't work. It's just a conjunction. We need multiple punctuation. There is a lot going on. This, as I was saying earlier, Levon, this has been a heck of a week. So we need that semicolon, right? Semicolon, however, comma. Nevertheless, furthermore, subordinating conjunctions, adverbs, you got to have more punctuation than just a comma. And you have to have punctuation. Like that second example, there's no punctuation there. That's not going to fly. The comma, right, in that third situation, the only time, and I mentioned this yesterday, the only time you can use commas on either side of however is before you have a full independent clause, right? So that's like it's sort of an introductory. So let's see if I can make one of these into an example. I suppose you could say, so mongooses were brought to Hawaii to hunt rats, period. They, however, ate many goose eggs instead, right? So they, however, ate many goose eggs instead. So splitting it up that way, you could use it to kind of show contrast, but, that's a little different. This one's correct. Got to have your semicolon and your comma for separating two independent clauses with words like however. Well, okay. There is fire, I believe, in my apartment complex. Okay. Give me a second. I'm going. Let me just step outside for a second here. Okay. I'll be right back. Yeah, it's a heck of a week. There's an apartment building. Well, I'm safe. Okay, I'll put it to you this way. But like two buildings over for me is ablaze right now. Let me just text my wife that I'm okay. What a week. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm fine. That's just, I heard I couldn't hear, I could hear them out front, right? And then I can hear them like now, they're still coming in. But when they get down to our entrance, it sounded like they kept going down the street. But apparently they turned in, came right up around our apartment building and in. So my wife has, I don't know how many different like news alerts and stuff that she gets. So I'm just sitting here talking to you guys, and she's over in Easton. So again, what a week. I'm gonna have to go outside. I gotta go watch. I gotta go gawk. So let's get through this real quick. So you will pick up the wedding dress. Meanwhile, I will pick up the cake. Okay. Meanwhile is your signal word in this sentence, right? You will pick up the wedding dress. Meanwhile, I will pick up the cake, telling you exactly when these two events are happening. Right? So you will pick up the wedding dress after I pick up the cake? No, right? Those things are going on simultaneously. You will pick up the wedding dress because I will pick up the cake. No, not like a cause and effect relationship there. You will pick up the wedding dress while I pick up the cake, right? That's what we want to go for. And again, although it's showing contrast. So although showing contrast, because showing cause and effect, after showing, a difference in time. You will pick up the wedding dress while I pick up the cake. Rosalind Franklin was a chemist. She contributed to the world's understanding of DNA. So a simple way you could combine those is with and, right? Comma, and she contributed to the world's understanding of DNA. I'm smelling smoke now. What are we going to do here? So here they're going to make one independent clause out of this. Okay. Rosalind Franklin, a chemist, contributed to the world's understanding of DNA. That fourth option there is what we're looking at. And, to reason through that, right? Because Rosalind Franklin was a chemist, she contributed to the world's understanding of DNA. No, right? That's, that's a cause and effect, right? Chemists can do a lot, not just because, or other people can work with DNA. Rosalind Franklin was a chemist because she contributed to the world's understanding of DNA. Also, cause and effect relationship does not work in this situation. Rosalind Franklin was a chemist, contributed to the world's understanding of DNA. Wrong punctuation, right? you need that subordinate, or not subordinate. You need a conjunction there to complete that, just like I said before. Those first two make it sound like that was her only option. Like, I have to work on DNA because I'm a chemist, right? That because relationship doesn't work. The intervening phrase there, that interrupting phrase, they made one independent clause out of that. Rosalind Franklin, a chemist, contributed to the world's understanding of DNA. Interrupting phrases, right, often add a bit of information. So instead of making Rosalind Franklin was a chemist, right, removing that as an independent clause and making a chemist an intervening or interrupting phrase in there. Okay. The man chopped the carrots, the woman put the chopped carrots in the stew, right? So now we have a bit of a cause and effect thing. At least we have an understanding. The relationship is something happened and something else happened. So it's like it's steps. So what are you going to do with that? The man chopped the carrots, woman put the carrots in the stew. Okay, that's changing the sentence, right? There's not, you need that article in front of woman. That's no longer a independent clause. After the man chopped the carrots, the woman put the carrots in the stew. Now we're showing a relationship with the advancement of time. Okay, this is sounding good. That's probably the one we're going to want. Because the man chopped the carrots, the woman put the carrots in the stew. Well, it's showing a cause and effect relationship, and that would be grammatically correct. But we don't have that type of information in our choices or in those two simple sentences. So all we know is that, one thing happened before the other, not necessarily a cause and effect. And then on that third one, the woman put the carrots in the stew while the man chopped the carrots. Well, it's hard to put them in the stew while he's chopping them, unless you want to maybe lose a fingertip, right? Those things are not happening simultaneously. So after the man chopped the carrots, the woman put them in the carrots in the stew. I hope I can get out of the parking lot. I go pick up my daughter later. Like at 3. So Melinda saw a team of horses. They were grazing in a field. Okay. So what were the horses doing? They were grazing. So Melinda saw a team of horses grazing in the field, right? So there you're just combining it. There's no need for punctuation. You're explaining that Melinda saw them grazing in the field, right? She saw horses. What were they doing? Grazing in the field. All right.
Do you have a better idea of ways you can join sentences?
Okay, so
and more meaning to your writing.
Basically, right, when joining sentences, the things you have to worry about: do I have the correct punctuation or the correct conjunction or the combination of the two? Am I just joining two independent clauses, or can I modify one of those two independent clauses to make it a subordinate clause or an intervening phrase? Okay. And on top of that, knowing, the relationship between those two sentences. A lot of of course, if you're writing, right? And you know how to do that. But for test taking, right, you're going to have to really think about the relationship between the two sentences when you make your choice. So any questions on joining sentences today? No? Okay. So we'll wrap it up there. Hopefully I'll have an apartment tomorrow so we can finish the week. I think it'll be okay. They're on the sea. So anyway, we'll wrap it up here. It's hot. It's a heck of a week. So guys, try to stay cool. And I am going to go watch an apartment building burn down. So y'all have a good afternoon. I'll see you guys tomorrow.